Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Our guests waiting to be profiled are conductor Ben Whiteley and filmmaker, director Paul Solet. Musical director, conductor Ben Whiteley was born and raised in Portland, Oregon. He earned both his bachelor's and master's degree at the University of Michigan and spent 2 summers at the Aspen Music School. Ben was in Los Angeles conducting Spamalot at the Amundsen Theater, which is at the Music Center downtown. And Spamalot is the first time that it's been here, of course. And is this the first time you've conducted in LA?
No, I was here several times before. I did falsettos here some years ago. I conducted the Full Monty at the Amundsen, and I did Grand Hotel at the Pantages many years ago.
But all musicals, of course, because what else do composers do?
Right.
How did you prepare for each one of these? Because falsettos is a little different from Spamalot and Grand Hotel.
Well, they're all, in the rehearsal process, falsettos was much different because it was a really small band and I was playing and conducting at the same time. And it came right after I'd finished doing Grand Hotel, so I had to go back and lock myself in a room and learn how to play the piano again for that one.
You were actually playing the piano?
Yeah.
And conducting. Were you on stage?
Yeah, we were up above the stage. Yeah.
I see.
It was at the Doolittle Theater.
I wondered how that happens when the conductor, you're like kind of conducting the orchestra, they're taking your cues, you're playing, and the people on stage are also paying attention to you, I guess.
Well, when you're playing and conducting, especially on a show like that where they can't really see you. They were little video monitors. So you have to make sure.
Oh, they watch the video monitors.
They check them out of the corner of their eyes, but it has to be rehearsed pretty carefully for that to all work.
Because like at the Amundsen, the video monitors are up on the balconies, right?
Well, actually, they're built into the set. There are little flat ones there that turn on.
Oh, there's some there too?
Yeah, they're only on part of the time. When they need to be on, they come on. It's on the computer program, so they'll show up.
Oh, that's how they do it?
Yeah. At least on Spamalot, that's how we do it.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought I saw 2 keyboards in the orchestra pit.
Well, on Spamalot, I'm just conducting. I don't play, so they're in.
Oh, you're not playing.
Yeah, that's only on falsettos. That was the last one I played, and that was 1993 or something like that.
But when I walked by the pit, it looked like there was a keyboard up high. Was there?
No, there's 3 keyboards, but they're all down low, and I'm just kind of raised up high to conduct. I'm sort of halfway between the band and the stage. And
then how large is the band then? Because the keyboards do a lot, don't they?
There's 15 people in the orchestra.
Oh, it is that big?
Yeah. But the keyboards do piano things, and one of them does some strings, but we have a violin and we have a wind, so it's pretty good sized.
When you went to college, you went to the University of Michigan, did you plan on having a musical career?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
I always did. I've been one of the people that's been just blessed to be able to do what I wanted to do.
Were you writing and playing instruments? What instrument did you play?
Piano was my instrument. Piano and conductor. I also sang too. So.
Yeah, and which takes me to the work you've done with the choral groups in with the New York Philharmonic and I guess My Fair Lady.
Well, I have a kind of a niche. I've done a lot of choral preparation and directing for musicals in New York for recording.
How do they call you? What is that? A separate kind of little niche, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mostly. There's a group in New York called City Center Encores that does concert versions of musicals, and I worked there as the associate conductor for many years and prepared the choruses for that, and got something, I guess, of a reputation. Or I met a lot of people, and so a lot of people connected with that will call me.
But did it have to do with your singing? Is that? Do you
well,
think
I think I'm maybe better at it because I think like a singer sometimes. I have a good communication with the singers, and I enjoy doing it.
So if you're working with a chorus, and the play has a long run, do you have to stay? Are you contracted to stay for the whole long run, or what happens with something like that?
If I'm doing the choral preparation or something, no. I usually just get it opened and then I flee.
You prepare?
Yeah. and then whoever's conducting it would take care of that.
They follow through?
Yeah, and if I'm doing something specific like that. And sometimes I have to do it really quickly, like the My Fair Lady was a concert version for the New York Philharmonic, and Rob Fisher was conducting it. And I was doing Spamalot in Atlanta, but I took a day off, and I flew up, and I did it all in one day, and set everything, and prepared everything, and did all the cutoffs, and balanced everything out, and then flew back that night, and then they performed it later that week.
So was the chorus there?
Yeah.
When you were there?
Yeah.
And then what do you do when you say you prepared it?
We'll have a
You
room.
have your music?
I have a room full of people.
Yeah.
And I've been through the score, and I've figured out who's going to sing what, how long the cutoffs are going to be, what all the dynamics are, and we go through and just rehearse it, and I give all that stuff to, and other people are writing it down so that after I'm gone, they can keep rehearsing it the way we've said it.
But isn't it there? Don't they know what they're supposed to sing? Isn't it in the score? Isn't it in the music?
Well, it's be like a play. If you know the words are on the page, and
Yeah.
it tells you what word you're supposed to say, and maybe if you're supposed to look left or right. But
Right.
There's more. It's the other parts to it beyond that making it into music, make it into a world-class kind of performance.
You talked about being in Atlanta and you're in LA and you're going to San Diego. How long do you usually stay? And do you with a play when you're conducting?
Oh, it's varied. Spamalot is second longest I've ever stayed. I did Cats in New York on Broadway for about 6 years, off and on, and that was the longest I'd ever done.
Off and on, but did you live in New York?
Yeah, I do. I still live in New York.
You still live in New York,
Supposedly.
so that's the difference. Yeah, that's what I mean. Where do you live, and how do you do that?
I still have an apartment and a cat in New York, but I've been on the road with Spamalot for 3.5 years. So.
But back and forth, how long do you stay in a city?
It varies. A lot of our engagements have been like a week, but several of them have been 3 months. So it varies greatly.
And do you work with the same cast?
Well, it's pretty much. I mean, it's changed over the years. People have come and gone.
But I mean, with Spamalot, say, is it the same cast who would go to San Diego?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So are you worried about rehearsing before opening night if it's the same people?
Well, in opening night, I have a different orchestra. I travel with some musicians, and then we add local musicians for each city. So
that's interesting.
My biggest variant is the local musicians, and I rehearse with them Tuesday, and then we open Tuesday night in a given city. So.
You mean you just rehearse that morning?
Yeah.
They come in?
10 to 3, yeah.
Do you pick them out? Do you cast them, or you just...
No, they have a local contractor, and we have a sort of an overall contractor in New York that deals with them, and then we send out a very detailed list of what they need to be able to do, and then they're hired when I get there.
Oh, that's great. So that's the first time you see them is on the morning before opening night.
Yes, and it usually works out okay.
And yay. Do you have to come to town earlier? Than
no.
Tuesday?
Well, we usually come and travel on Monday and rehearse Tuesday, open Tuesday night, or something. Like in LA, we had previews.
Right.
It's such an important venue, we had some preview performances first. But
and how long is that? 5 weeks, 6 weeks? How long was
here? 9 weeks.
It was 9 weeks. So you get an apartment?
Yeah, got a house.
You get a house?
It was a fantastic house, yeah. Have a really nice time.
And who does all that for you?
I did that for me.
Oh, did you? Because I wonder that, these plays are coming in and out, and musicians and actors are moving in and out of the city. Where do they go and what do they do?
Well, I think that, there are places and websites and stuff that are set up to help you find that. Or word of mouth, if you rent a place and somebody else is coming in with a show, you say, hey, I just rented a wonderful place. And they tell you their friend about it that's coming in with Legally Blonde or something, and then they'll rent it.
So that's how... you guest conducted at your alma mater a lot, University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Is that a very musical... Has a great reputation?
Yeah, it's got a very good music school, and it's got an excellent musical theater department. They just celebrated their 25th anniversary, and we had a big concert there.
Oh, you went and did that?
Yeah, I conducted the overture to Gypsy there, and I had a wonderful time.
Do they use people from out of the school when they're doing productions?
Usually not. I mean, occasionally so. They have, but I had, was lucky enough to be available sometimes when they didn't have a conductor for a certain thing, and so I did, I think, 8 or 9 shows there so far.
That's fantastic.
Well, you meet the kids, and they move to New York, and they're so talented, and I have all these really young, fun friends in New York.
Them? Yeah, that's great.
Sure. I work with them again.
And then in St. Louis, it was at the Municipal Opera House. Was it an opera? Or
the Muni in St. Louis is actually their big it's called the St. Louis Municipal Opera, and it's their gigantic outdoor theater.
Oh,
it's been there
is.
for over 85, 90 or something like that. It holds 11,000 people.
Wow.
And they do 7 shows every summer, and it's a fantastic, fun place to work.
But it's musical theater.
Musicals. Yeah.
I see, musicals. Do you compose at all?
I don't.
You don't?
I'm a recreative artist, I call myself.
That's interesting, isn't it? You never wanted to compose?
No, I've written little things, but that's not really my number one interest. I like doing other people's work. And
What is your favorite thing to conduct?
like a favorite show or favorite anything?
Anything. I mean, do you conduct the classics?
Well, I've done some opera and things like that, but I think I like musicals that people can really sing in, and it doesn't necessarily matter the style of it. I love people listening to people sing.
Yeah.
And so I loved, and I also like musicals for the heart. You know, I loved doing Grand Hotel because it just had such wonderful plots and things in there. And I like operetta. Nobody ever does operettas anymore.
I know. What's the difference?
Operettas are, technically they're usually set in a foreign land. Everybody sings, most of the time. Typically, they're kind of stilted. They're very old-fashioned, but the music is more legitimate, and but it's just beautiful stuff. It's just so out of fashion now that there's not much interest in doing it.
But it has to come back too, then.
Well, occasionally we did.
Gilbert and Sullivan, is that operetta?
Yeah. That's still done. We did a recording of a Romberg operetta called The New Moon a few years ago, and I did the choral stuff on that, and that did really actually pretty well. So maybe there will be a revival.
Yeah, we need a revival. You're in the pit. You have the baton.
Mm-hmm.
What happens on the stage if something goes wrong? If I don't know, if the actor trips or they don't sing. Have you had any of those kind of experiences?
Oh yeah.
Yes?
Oh sure. It happens more than you'd think, but. Usually, the show must go on thing, usually things don't stop. It really takes a big train wreck for a show to stop.
Does it?
Yeah. And
people
usually,
just keep...
somebody else will fill in. If somebody forgets a line, somebody else will, if there's a big enough hole, somebody else will say the line for them. He'll fill it in, or the orchestra will just vamp and kill time until they figure out where they are. And then
That's what I mean. So do you keep the orchestra playing?
Yeah, I'm occasionally.
How do you do that?
Well,
they're watching you. you're
At most of the tricky places, a lot of times there'll be a vamp built in, so that I'll just keep my finger up and I say, if it's sometimes those are already built in there.
You mean extra music?
Yeah, or a repeat, a bar that you would keep repeating.
I see. So you can just give them that.
But sometimes, we've had things where the lights went out and power went out and things like that. I remember that happened during falsettos, and power, the orchestra power went out and all the lights went out and we couldn't see the music, and all the emergency lights came on for the theater, but we couldn't see anything, so everything's kind of slowly ground to a halt.
Did it ground?
It did stop.
And then do they have a generator or something to come
back?
back?
I can't remember how that all happened. But a lot of times now we have computers, on shows, and every now and then the computers will go kind of haywire. It's rare,
what happens with that? Because, they depend on all the cues, don't they, from the computer? We have
very rarely on Spamalot, but sometime, a couple of years ago, we had to stop, I think, as an automation thing, because the sets are moving on these motors.
Oh,
and
yeah.
If it's just not safe, they'll stop. That's the number one thing in a show. If it's not safe for the actors,
then they'll stop.
And
then what happens? They come out. Somebody comes out. Not the producer, not the director, because he's not there all the time either, is he?
No, it'd be the stage manager. The stage manager is in charge of everything that happens on stage, and I'm kind of in charge of the pit and what happens, that we can see from the front. So, so if I see something going wrong, I will call him or her on the phone.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, and say, hey, what's going on? Are we stopping? What's going to happen? Yeah.
And then they come out and make an announcement?
Yeah, then they'll come on. Yeah, something like that.
I think it's fantastic, and I'm so happy that you came and talked to us today.
Oh, it was my pleasure.
How was Spamalot? Was it fun for you?
Great fun.
How long have you been doing?
I've been doing it for 3.5 years.
You said 3.5 years, but
it
does
only
anyone
runs
fill in?
For me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have an associate conductor who conducts once or twice a week, and then a few times I've taken a month off or something to go off and do another project, which has kept it interesting for me and kept me around. And I've had a great time. Nice people to work for, and good
it's
actors.
Fun.
Yeah, and it's good.
But
it's very funny.
It also looks like things are happening that aren't supposed to happen. But I guess they're scripted that way, right?
Oh yeah. There's little places that they can improv a little bit, but there's not really. No, it's a very tight show. It works like clockwork.
I thought that the cast in Los Angeles was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, they're great. John O'Hurley and Merle Dandridge. And
yeah,
all, they all do a
fantastic.
great job.
And I didn't know you at the time, so I didn't get to watch you conduct.
Well, I have a couple of little bits down there. They yell at me, and I get to act a little bit.
Oh, that's right. You got to act a little bit too. You're part of it.
Yeah, they yell at me and tell me to sit down at various times. And, yeah, it's fun.
And do you raise your eyebrows?
I act up a storm. Yeah.
Well, you didn't do too much acting today, but we were happy to have you.
Good. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Don't go away. We'll be right back with the Joan Quinn Profiles, and our guest will be Paul Solet. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. I'm with writer-director Paul Solet, who graduated with a BA in Film and Psychology in 2002, and in 2003 he completed his screenwriting course, and all of those degrees were earned at Emerson College in Boston. He's won awards for his horror films and his screenwriting. He lives and works in LA. And how did you get involved in horror stories?
Well, I mean, as long as I can remember, I've been sort of absorbing that stuff, you know, like living and breathing genre films and genre stories and horror stuff since I was a little kid.
Well, you're calling them genre, and they do call them genre now, but is horror the only type of genre film there is?
Well, no. I mean, you know, we say the genre.
Right. Why do we say that?
Well, it actually sort of encompasses more than just sort of straight horror, you know. It's sort of like you have all these sort of subgenres, you have slasher movies, and you have all different kinds of stuff. If you go to Europe and you talk about fantastic films, that's sort of more what I'm talking about, and that encompasses, you know, horror, everything from horror to, you know, sort of like a barbarian movie, all this stuff.
That covers it all?
Yeah.
I see. When you were at Emerson, were you writing and doing these films?
Yeah, I mean, as long as I can remember, I've been, you know,
you
running
say
around the
as long as you can remember, but what does a little boy do? And how does he get interested?
You commandeer the family camcorder, and then you run around torturing your friends on camera.
That's what I wondered.
That's what you do. That's what you do.
And where does your family go? Leave me alone.
You know, I'm lucky enough to have one of those stories where I had a family that was just purely supportive of you know, any creative arts. They were really, I didn't have a story, you know, I didn't have parents that said, you want to do what? I didn't have that, you know, I mean, I'm very fortunate to have been, you know, supported in that way.
Where were you living?
I'm from Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh, you're from back east, so
Yeah.
You were like, at Emerson was like right in your
home.
backyard,
Yeah.
right? Oh, I see. So did they have more ghouls and ghosts in Boston than they do here? They do, because they're there longer.
That may be so. That's true. There's more history to those ghosts and ghouls.
I think so.
I have no basis for comparison, so I mean, we have our share.
Yeah. When did you decide to be a filmmaker?
I actually had a camp counselor when I was a little kid who had some success out here. The guy Eli Roth, he did Hostel, and so he was my camp counselor when I was about 11. And,
he was?
Yeah, and him and his brothers sort of were already making movies, and I was already running around with, you know, horror magazines and
Oh, I wondered
all
about
this stuff.
magazines. Yeah.
But you know, I didn't. It only became real to me that you could actually do this as a career. Sort of watching them, this is what they wanted to do.
But you were a teenager then, right?
No, I was 11.
Oh, you weren't even a teenager.
No, I was the camper. They were the counselors. So you know, there's a very creative family.
They were the teenagers.
That's right. And they were already sort of making these crazy movies, and I realized like, this is what these guys are going to do. You can actually do this as a career. So at that point, it became more realistic to me.
But when you looked at it, when you decided to be a filmmaker, there's so many different aspects in filmmaking. Did you have to concentrate on all of them, or were you just thinking, I'm going to be the director, writer, or I have to know how to do lighting, or?
Well, I mean, I always knew I wanted to tell stories. You know?
Oh, that's the main thing, I guess.
And it starts with writing. You know, so I've always been writing. I've always been interested in that, and I've always sort of done that every chance I could get, you know, even before it sort of merged with filmmaking. You know, I always wrote and I always loved films, and they came together.
The first films, what was the story of the first film you wrote?
The first film that I wrote? I had just graduated college and you know, was sort of figuring out where I was going to go. You know, you finish film school, what are you going to do? And, you know,
was there a film school at Emerson?
Oh yeah, Emerson's great film school. And you know, you hear the whole time like you can write anywhere. You don't need to be in Los Angeles to write. You know, so I got a writing project with Eli. Eli threw me a sort of collaborative thing.
Did you keep that connection going?
Yeah, he's been sort of a mentor of mine ever since.
And he's not that much older than you, though, is he?
He's not tremendously older. I mean, I think he's like 8 years older than me.
Yeah, not very much. I mean, he's not like this great sage.
No.
He's like your camp counselor. So that film was, the first film was a short film?
That was a feature that we wrote together. The first.
What was the name of that?
I don't even know. I don't think we just had working titles. I don't think you would know about that one. I don't know which one you're thinking of.
Oh, I was thinking you made a short film.
A bunch of them, yeah.
Yeah, you made a lot of short films?
Sure.
And then where did they show them?
Well, if you're making shorts in college, there are sort of outlets there. And then, there are so many little film festivals these days.
Do they?
Well,
the short films, do those go into them too?
They go into short film programs, or they get programmed before a feature. In the case of one of these shorts, it got picked up for distribution by this horror magazine called Fangoria. They do like a best of, anthology of shorts, and we got on there with one of them.
And then when you made the shorts, did you make them as a prelude to making a feature film, or was it?
Eventually, that one was just sort of a run and gun, for kicks kind of a thing that we did with no money. But at a certain point, when I eventually did have sort of a stack of scripts ready to go and ended up moving to Los Angeles, as I was crossing the country, I wrote this script called Grace.
Is that how Grace came about?
Mm-hmm.
Driving across country?
Yeah, sort of stopping in hotels and,
Well, tell us about it. Where did the idea come from? Grace is a baby.
Yes, Grace is a baby.
Fantastic film.
Thank you. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you.
So where did the idea come from?
It came from, initially, it just came from a conversation with, about the medical science behind the thing. And this is, the medical science involves basically, if you're pregnant and you lose your child and labor is not induced, you can carry a baby to term. And women make a decision to do that more frequently than we talk about around the dinner table.
Yeah, because that was kind of a surprise in your film.
It's a pretty common decision to then go through with labor and deliver naturally, particularly if someone's committed to having a natural birth already.
So yes, well, that was the difference in your script. It was natural. It was more environmentally friendly. The whole genre, I don't want to say genre again, but the whole feeling of the film was more contemporary and new age, I think.
Yeah, the protagonist is someone that's sort of she's been, the traditional medicine has failed her.
That's the reason she turned.
Yeah,
So talk about those characters. Let's talk about them. Grace's mother.
Grace's mom. Grace is the baby, and the mom is a woman named Madeline Matheson, and she's been trying to have a baby for a long time, and hasn't been able to, and she's finally pregnant. She's 8.5 months pregnant, and she loses her child. And she's committed to having a natural birth. Like as I said, traditional medicine has failed her, so she goes through with it, and she delivers this baby. And when she does, something happens. Effectively, she wills this baby back to life, but it is not without very sinister consequence.
So you have these characters with all this psychological story behind it. When I started thinking about it last night, I was thinking maybe that's why your psychology classes at Emerson helped you, because there are like deep backstories, and they all have their own problems and their own wants, like the mother-in-law,
right,
and the woman who's in charge of the birthing, and you bring in kind of, I don't know, contemporary problems, contemporarily driven problems into the woman at the birthing. She had a relationship, or did she want a relationship with her client?
Well, the thing that unifies all these characters, even beneath this sort of core theme of this idea of the uncanny bond between, the uncanny power of this bond that there is between a mother and a child, even beneath that is this one thing that links all of these characters, which is wanting something that you cannot have.
So that's the basic theme.
That's the core
actually,
theme.
That's right. That is the core theme. Right. The mother-in-law wanted something.
Yeah.
The only person, and he kind of leaves, is the son, or the husband.
He wants something too.
He wants something too.
He wants his wife's, to love him romantically, whereas what he's getting is a much more mechanical sort of. She certainly loves him, but he's a means to an end for her, and that's his sun rises and sets with this woman. So he wants her, can't have her.
And then the woman who works, the assistant who's working at the birthing place.
She's interested in her boss is interested in Madeline is interested exclusively in a child.
So it's like this whole, I thought it was interesting the way they all relate. And when you say they all want something, I think that really makes the pictures have a lot more depth, because I thought it had a lot of depth. Okay, let's get into this. How did you cast? Jordan Ladd was Madeline.
Mm-hmm.
How did you cast her?
I discovered Jordan through Eli because she was in Cabin Fever years ago, and I remember sort of watching him go through that whole process and hearing about Jordan and hearing how, you know, she's a pro and she's just a good, you know, she's a great person. And he never had anything, you know, but raves to say about her. And, you know, I know that, you know, you had Jordan in here.
I've talked to Jordan, and I know her family for years, and
right.
I did, but it was really funny because I said, you're the queen of the genres. I mean, she was like, but has she been in a lot of horror films?
She's done, you know, she's definitely done her share of genre films.
And was it that experience that really led you to her, and did you think that she was going to be able to play this role?
Well, what led me to her is sort of my own response to her. With a you know, in a film like this, when you have a protagonist making these difficult decisions,
yes.
You cannot write her off as a kook or someone, you know, just sort of a weirdo. You cannot write her off. And Jordan, what she brings to this, she's not just your average sort of blonde, you know, blue-eyed beauty. She has some real depth.
Yeah,
and
no,
intelligence.
she did, and it showed on the screen. It showed her feeling. Where did you shoot?
We shot in a place called Regina, Saskatchewan.
Oh, that's right. That took her back to her grandfather, Alan Ladd, had made a film called Saskatchewan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he had made this film called Saskatchewan, and here she is ending up in your film
right.
up there, which was something. That's right. How long did it take?
Well, you know, initially everybody who read the script said, okay, you need 24 days to shoot this. This is ambitious, cat, baby, car crash, all this stuff. And then it was 22, and then it was 20, but we were going to shoot in town, so we could pull favors in town. And then they were like, actually, it's going to be 20, and you're going to be in Canada. And I said, okay, that's okay. Canada, Vancouver, good cruise, a little Hollywood, that's great. And then they were like, it's actually a place called Regina, Saskatchewan. And I said, okay, you know, we roll with the punches here, let's do this. And then we went up there and said, it's actually going to be 18 days. And then 9 days in, you know, they said, we actually sort of screwed up your tax incentive, and you actually have 17 days. So we did 192 scenes with, you know, a cat and a baby in a car crash in 17 9.5-hour days in Regina, Saskatchewan.
How many hour days?
About 9.5.
Yeah, you were really working.
Running and
How
gunning.
did you make all that blood? How do you make blood in those
blood?
pictures?
It's usually corn syrup based.
Is it?
Yeah,
Because it
Caro.
looked pretty real.
Thank you.
Yeah, it looked real.
We pay a lot of attention to those fluids. Gotta get those right. Nothing bothers me more than, you know, bright red stage blood.
What, you had 17 days, and you obviously had every scene storyboarded and everything was ready to go. Were there some challenges that were really tough for you?
There's nothing but challenges in a schedule like that. You're constantly putting out fires. You have 1 to 3 takes, you know, and I'm
1 to 3?
1 to 3 takes, you know, and we're not shooting digital. It's not like you can just roll. You know, we're up against, you're burning film. You don't have enough film for the day. You have no time. You're constantly, you know, I need these 16 shots. I can only get 2. What's the contingency? But the school of filmmaking, the school of filmmaking that I come from emphasizes preparation. You know, and by the time you show up on set, you have a shorthand with every department head. You've done the footwork with your actors. You know, all cast has extensive biographies. They know every interrelationship with every other character. You know, your crew knows exactly what shots you want. They have like I make like a multimedia manifesto for all department heads. That's sort of, you know, shot list and storyboards and fine art references and everything. So were you rehearsing with them ahead of time? Oh, you don't get to rehearse. You didn't get to rehearse? No. So they just have to read that stuff all the time? I mean, that relationship, cast? Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, if you have an actor like Jordan who cares enough to do some footwork, you know, then she's working on her own time with her coach, and I was in Canada, you know, prepping the film. That's she was here, yeah. So I would talk to her coach and her, and we would, email back and forth and, talk on the phone whenever we could. And when she came up, I had her meet with midwives and learn how to move and learn how to groan and, learn how a pregnant woman would sit, how she would touch her belly, all these things.
How to groan. Isn't that great? Oh, those are the things that I think people who see these films wonder what and how do they get made. And I thank you for coming and explaining them to me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles. Keep writing to jaquinn1@aol.com, the email, and 777 South Figueroa, 44th floor, Los Angeles, 90017. Bye.